Welcome to The Reset, a weekly dispatch of experiences and takes on performance and modern care. For the athlete, the practitioner, and the thinker, we break down recovery, health, and performance systems to reshape the conversation around wellness. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Reset. In today's blog, we begin to round off our information on the movement system with an introduction to the fascial system. The fascial system is a connected network of fibers that creates a pathway of information sharing quite literally from our heads to our toes. Without it, we would not be able to create smooth and powerful movement patterns without looking robotic. The fascia has many facets to its function, and those will be explored here today. I hope you enjoy listening in. The Reset, Episode 35. The Fascial System, Part 1. Cultivating the missing link of movement through the Great Connector. When most people learn about the human body, it is explained to them using a relatively simple model that follows this simple progression. The nervous system tells the muscles when to contract, and the brain what to feel, and those muscles move your bones to a different point in space. This framework is helpful for learning basic anatomy, but it does not fully explain how the body actually moves, stabilizes itself, or distributes force. And our main purpose through this written endeavor is to better understand those systems in their networked reality. In reality, the body does not function as a collection of isolated parts. Instead, it behaves more like an interconnected network where tension, information, and mechanical forces travel across multiple tissues at once. The structure that makes this integration possible is the fascial system. Fascia is a continuous network of connective tissue that surrounds and permeates nearly every structure in the body. Muscles, bones, nerves, blood vessels, and organs. Rather than acting as a simple packaging or a wrapper, as it's communicated sometimes, this connective matrix forms a dynamic system that distributes mechanical forces, provides structural support, and communicates constantly with the nervous system. In many ways, fascia can be thought of as the physical framework that allows the body's systems to function together as a coordinated whole. Understanding this system provides a deeper explanation for how movement, stability, and even pain emerge in the body. Today, this will be our journey. The body's continuous connective network. The fascia carries many features that are, without a doubt, imperative to the function of the human body. One of the most important of those features is that it forms a continuous structure throughout the entire body. This entitles it to carry information from one part to another through otherwise unthinkable connections. Unlike muscles or bones, which have clearly defined boundaries, fascial tissue extends uninterrupted from the surface of the skin to the deepest internal structures. Every muscle fiber, nerve bundle, organ, and joint is surrounded and connected by layers of connective tissue. A useful analogy to visualize this connection would be a spider web. If tension is applied to one strand of a web, the force spreads across the entire structure rather than remaining isolated to that single point. The fascial system behaves in a similar way. Mechanical forces applied to one area of the body can propagate through connective tissues and influence distant regions. This continuity means that the body does not transmit force only through muscles and bones. Instead, force travels through a distributed network of connective tissues that help coordinate that movement across the entire system. It is what creates such a powerfully sensitive system that, without a doubt, has the ability to be affected by just about anything in the body. Any input from the external world, anything that happens inside, both beneficial or detrimental. Fascia as a sensory organ. Beyond its mechanical role, fascia is also deeply involved in how the nervous system senses and regulates the body. For many years, fascia was thought to be relatively inert, meaning it has no contractibility capabilities and stays in a rigid supportive role rather than create movement. However, more recent research has shown that fascial structures contain a dense population of sensory nerve endings, including mechanoreceptors that respond to stretch, pressure, and tissue deformation, and can even provide a recoiling effect in response to the changing environment around it or within its own system. These receptors contribute to several forms of body awareness, including proprioception, the awareness of a joint position and movement, interoception, internal sensing of a physiological state, and mechanosensation, the detection of pressure and tissue tension. We've learned about these previously in the nervous system. Some anatomical studies suggest that the fascial tissues may contain as many or more sensory receptors than the muscle fibers they surround. This means that the fascial system may act as a major sensory interface between the body and the nervous system, constantly providing feedback about tissue tension, posture, and movement. From a functional perspective, this sensory information helps the nervous system coordinate stability and adjust movement patterns in real time. Because of this, we can now talk about the interconnectedness of the body more openly, the more we understand the fascia's role in movement and function, as evidence points to a much more supportive reality to the body's neuromuscular system than we may have previously thought. This gives further rise to our understanding of the body as one large ecosystem, rather than individual parts, and it changes how we understand movement, how we train, and how we should rehabilitate the body when it stops functioning optimally. Force transmission beyond muscles. Traditional biomechanics often describes movement as a simple chain of events. A muscle contracts, pulls on a tendon, and moves a bone at the joint. While this model captures an important part of the process, research in connective tissue biomechanics has demonstrated that force transmission is not limited to tendons alone. Studies on myofascial force transmission have shown that tension generated by a muscle can spread through surrounding fascial layers and influence neighboring muscles and structures. This means that muscles do not function as completely independent units. Instead, they operate within a broader mechanical network. This distribution force helps the body. It helps by sharing mechanical loads across multiple tissues, improving movement efficiency, and reducing localized stress on joints and muscles. It also explains why dysfunction or restriction in one region of the body can influence movement elsewhere, something that, in my opinion, should no longer be a rarity in health professionals' processes for assessing, mitigating, and managing their clients' health needs. For example, reduced mobility in the foot may alter force distribution through the lower limb, influencing the knee and the hip, and even the lower back or upper back. Rather than a series of isolated levers, the body functions more like an interconnected tension network, much like that spider web we talked about earlier. All of this is possible through fascial connections, both superficial and deep. We have seen a slight shift in the focus from some professionals in dealing with their patients' cases, whether they're looking to gain strength and or function in a preventative fitness model or regain them in a rehabilitation healthcare model. We all, as health practitioners, know and understand the fascial system. Whether we understand how to incorporate it into our practice is entirely up to those like myself who teach this process. Stability through tension. The principle of biotensegrity. To understand how fascia contributes to stability, it helps to look at the body through the concept of biotensegrity. Biotensegrity is an architectural principle describing structures that maintain stability through a balance of tension and compression elements. In the human body, bones act primarily as compression struts, if you will. Fascia, tendons, and ligaments act as tension networks, or guy wires for an electrical tower. Instead of relying solely on rigid structures, stability emerges from the balanced distribution of tension throughout the entire system. A useful comparison is a suspension bridge. The bridge remains stable because tension is distributed through cables that connect different parts of the structure. If tension changes in one area, the forces redistribute through the entire network, and the responsibility of stability is shifted to a neighboring system to handle the excess load. The body behaves in a similar way. Fascial tension networks help coordinate the relationship between muscles, joints, and bones, allowing the body to maintain stability while remaining adaptable and efficient. This dynamic balance is what allows humans to move fluidly while still maintaining structural integrity. It is also what causes breakdown of those neighboring systems if left unchecked for too long, and is the number one reason for visits to the clinic in everyday people without process and guidance in their fitness and health journey. Why the fascial system matters for movement and health. Understanding the fascial system changes how we think about both movement and physical training and rehab. If the body functions as a connected tension network rather than a collection of isolated parts, then the movement and the exercise should reflect that in reality. Activities that challenge the body through multi-directional movement, elastic loading, and whole body coordination may help stimulate the fascial system more effectively than isolated muscle contractions alone. Examples of this would include loaded carries, crawling patterns, rotational movements, jumping and elastic training, and dynamic mobility work. These types of movements encourage connective tissues to adapt to varying patterns of tension and load, helping maintain both mobility and resilience across the entire system. And with over a decade of combined experience as a strength and conditioning coach and sports injury consultant, these are also the number one most overlooked aspects of training and rehab programming in the entire industry of health and fitness, in my opinion. Conclusion: a more complete view of the human body. When we step back and look at the body as a whole, three major systems help explain how movement emerges. The nervous system provides control and coordination. The musculoskeletal system generates force and produces movement. And the fascial system connects and integrates these elements into a unified mechanical and sensory network. Rather than acting as a passive wrapping, fascia forms the connective framework that allows the body to distribute forces, sense its position, and maintain stability across a constantly changing environment. Understanding the fascial system brings us one step closer to understanding that network and how it truly works. Though this content might be a little dense for someone who does not work in my field, I know that each and every one of you reading or listening along has the capacity to understand and the dedication to themselves to utilize this information as you need. After our next post, you should have a very solid understanding of how our body can perceive and experience the world outside and create pathways to produce movement within. If you have received what you needed out of this post, or if you have found yourself constantly learning on our journey thus far, please feel invited to share this blog with one friend and one family member. Let's grow this community together. Until next time, in health and performance, Alex.